Hello, true duelists. My name is Craig Fee, and as always, welcome to the new card report. The video I make because I haven't made a Wednesday. I got one next week, but until then, have some new card reports. The Age of Overlord continues to be known because that's the new set and we're learning more cards from it. Bringing us yet more Vizaz Starfrost lore. Yes, Yu-Gi-Oh's multiverse continues to hold my attention as effectively as Marvel movies do these days. By which I mean that I haven't been paying attention at all, but I do recognize that they're happening. And, you know, all takes on it are heavily biased, either for or against it, because there is no such thing as subtlety or nuance, at least according to some. So with that out of the way, have some new cards. Vizaz Samsara is a new light level 4 tuner fairy rocking those tried and true Zen main stats that this lore just loves. It's treated as Vizaz Starfrost while on the field or in the graveyard, and can summon itself from your hand by shuffling any number of Vizaz monsters from your field, grave, or banished pile back into your deck. Also that it can gain 400 attack for each shuffled to summon it with a different name. And as an extra bit of beauty, this can be treated as a non-tuner for a synchro summon. Is there much to say about this? It's a self-summoning tuner in Vizaz decks that can be a non-tuner if you need it to be. That's a solid dude, and it's splashable in any deck playing Vizaz already. The only thing I can mention is for a second when I saw this art, I thought that little, extended loincloth bit going on was just like his leg and he was missing it. And he was just kind of like doing the Captain Morgan's pose, but sans one leg. And I was like, damn, this Vizaz lost his leg, but he didn't. He didn't lose his leg. It was there the whole time. But for all the criticism that the Vizaz lore gets, at least it isn't as shitty as Halo 5. So like, even if he had been just missing a leg, I would have been fine with it because Halsey showed up without an arm and they were like, just fucking deal with it. And I tried to and I hated it. So the end of this joke is fuck Halo 5. That game fucking sucked. Moving on from my inability to move on from the slow inevitable death of one of my childhood favorites, Veda Upanishad. Upanishad? This fucker. A level 12 Dark Warrior Pendulum with a scale of 0, an attack of 0, and a defense of 4,000. Damn boy, he thick. Its pendulum effect will once per chain place 3 counters on itself if you destroy a monster. Now originally that was translated to say an opponent's monster only, but I do believe that it was updated to say monster in general, which means that most of this script is irrelevant, so get ready for some tried and true Craig Free improv. Craig Free? I can't speak today. It places 3 counters on itself if a monster is destroyed, and its scale will increase by 1 for each counter on it. As for what to do with them, you can remove 12 counters in order to special summon this from your pendulum scale, which transitions perfectly into its monster effect, because it can't be normal summoned or set and must be special summoned by its own pendulum effect, and can only be summoned once per turn. Its actual effect is once per turn. If the opponent summons a monster from the extra deck, you can banish 12 cards from your hand, field, and grave face down to make it the end phase. Sure. And lastly, during your standby phase, it will return itself to the hand, at which point you can summon a Veda monster from your deck, hand, or grave, or even banished pile. Well, that is unexpected. That is a crazy strong effect, hampered by the need to destroy monsters to get it going. And really, is that hampered? Lord knows enough cards destroy their own monsters, namely the whole Manadium deck. They pop 1 or 2 or 4 of their monsters without too much trouble, all things considered. Now, it would be, in my opinion, smart to have kept it to opponents' monsters so that this wouldn't be a, pretty damn splashable term skip, at least in regards to Vizaz decks, but hey, what do I know? The reality is that this will require 12 cards for you to banish for you to get its effect. And I think an apt comparison or a fair comparison might be to compare it to back in the 2018 days of hell on Earth that were Pendulum FTK, wherein Pendulum players at that time realized that Pendulum's ability to build a board of a couple of negates and then not let the opponent get anything on board and then OTK on turn 3 was pretty irrelevant when you could just OTK them, FTK them with the Supreme King Starving Venom Dragon effect by copying Independent Nightingale. You just do that on turn 1 and burn them for 8k without even giving them the opportunity to try it all. That's not a one-to-one comparison, but I bring it up to say you have to view it in the manner of Vanadium and decks that are going to be playing this a la Vizaz decks already are kind of known for building just big, chunky, thick boards with Barone and other just powerful generic synchros, probably Bestial Dispater, and you get what I'm saying. Big monsters, big nose, and big fuck yous all around. So how much does adding this card to the end board bolster that? If you're going to add this to the end board, you're going to pretty well certainly be protecting it, because all it takes is an in perm and this card's functionally, useless. Granted, draw the out is, of course, only so valid. I'm just saying, if this becomes prominent enough that it's an issue, it kind of falls into the same category as a Rise Heart, where if this is consistently ending turns, people are going to start, maining kaijus and sphere modes and lava go, things to get it off the field or imperms to negate it so that they can summon from their extra deck with, impunity. All of which to say, is it worth it to include this kind of, heavy investment, make it easier to target its side, all at the cost of skipping their turn? If you get it off, you pretty well win. I don't see them coming back from having like one extra deck monster on the field and you having your quote-unquote full board, presumably. I don't know, especially when it requires 12 monsters to banish face down, or 12 cards, pardon me. It's a heavy investment. I imagine people will play it or try to play it because the effect is just so strong. I don't know how effective it's going to be in the grand scheme moving forward. Or I'm completely wrong and this thing's busted as all hell and you're looking at the worst thing you've seen come into the game in years. And by years I mean like 1 year, because the worst thing you've seen come into the game is probably a Rise Heart or Shangri-Era or fucking the way people complain, it might be like, God, I hate Bujin Yamato in like 2014. It's like, people gonna hate, but you know what? Yu-Gi-Oh! Up next is the new Vanadium Synchro. Vanadium Trilosukta can Sukta. Yep, this is a level 6 light fairy with the tuner status, 2300 attack and 1300 defense, needing any tuner and one or more non-tuners to summon out. On Synchro Summon, it can target a level 2 tuner in your grave and summon it with its effects negated. And it can also target any number of tuners you control and make their levels all become 2. But doing so will lock you into only summoning Synchro monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn. Now, from what I've seen, there's some amount of online debate as to which tier limit this monster is, because if you weren't aware, this is the tier limit that became a Vanadium. Some people say that it's Kitkalos, based on the clothing and the sword that it's holding, and others insist that it's Sheeran, based on the stat line matched with the sword that it's given that would buff Sheeran stats, because Kitkalos, that's a different defense stat. That's crazy. And then you've got people really getting heated about this debate, refusing to accept anyone other than themselves even possibly being right. As for me, I saw this and I was like, yo, is that Moye? And as it turns out, no, not even close. Matter of fact, that's the wrong lore. That's the Albaz branded cool guys in the desert lore. And this is the planetary space mermaid that became a ball. What the fuck are the Vanadium? I don't know. The point is, I don't understand the lore and I don't give a shit. Talking about this card in a relevant sense that isn't just me rambling, it does seem to fix the fact that currently Vanadium doesn't really do anything if they're interrupted and left with a level 2 tuner and a level 4 non-tuner. And this can get out the Vizaz Amitara, I believe was the name, the new level 8, and then climb from there. It being a tuner means that you can't say Excel Stardust into a generic 10, but it's far from being bad. And now, if I'm completely off base here and you're thinking, he's a fucking idiot, he doesn't know what he's talking about. 1, you'd be right. But 2, I just stole this knowledge from a tweet by Nesh, so you're not arguing with me, you're arguing with him. I'm a phony, but I felt as a fucking newsman that going to a source for information was better than just talking out my ass. Who's the real villain here? It's Konami from not letting me be able to afford Vanadium. Or the secondary market. Konami doesn't directly set the prices. You tell me. Fuck it, moving on. Planetary Elegy is a new normal spell that'll add a Veda monster from your deck to your hand and has the bonus effect in the graveyard that if a face-up tuner or tuners is destroyed and Visage Starfrost is on your field, you can banish this card to add one of those tuners back to your hand. Now, notably, there is a bit of a lack of a once per turn on this card, and Vanadium sure as hell does love blowing up their tuners, don't they? The problem is, I believe that only the new Pendulum is the Veda monster currently, unless I've forgotten one, in which case, enlighten me. Lord knows I've been wrong before. So there's not too much to search with this and then put it into the graveyard with. Foolish Burial Goods is a card, of course, but that card is a once per turn. So I guess it's almost funny how card design works out sometime, isn't it? Moving on to Planetary Eulogy, this is a new quick play spell that can target one monster you control and one your opponent controls to destroy your monster and negate the effects of the opponents. And then if a Visage Starfrost is on the field, you can destroy their monster after its effects have been negated as well. Nice. Plus, it can banish itself from the grave during your main phase, so long as you control a Veda monster to pop one monster you control, which will of course trigger Upashad and that's doable. It's kind of stinky in that sense, depending. I mean, Lord knows blowing up your own monsters can be either fantastic or terrible. More often than fantastic, but the point of this is that it seems to help your Vanadium tuners, so take that and run. It seems cute, but it's nothing phenomenal. It also is technically generic, which is something to consider. Pretty clearly meant to be Vanadium or Vanadium adjacent based on the art, and the, plus off the pop and to do the shenanigans, but there are other things you could tech this into. Unchained might like this, and if I'm not mistaken, Yang Zing might. I don't think they missed the timing on this, but if they do, Denglong's back, and he won't miss the timing. Cope. I don't know, people just do shit. Throw it in Yang Zing if you're not a coward. There are also two traps in this wave. First up is Sarv Sarga, a normal trap that lets you target and shuffle an opponent's monster into the deck so long as you control a Visage Starfrost, but they do get to add a monster from their deck to the hand in the end phase with a different type and a level lower than the shuffled monster's level or rank or link rating. And it can also add itself from the grave to your hand if you summon out a Veda monster, so fucking cool. That's not really terrible, I don't think. It being searchable is the key. Lord knows that makes it, and other cards like it, like say Spiral Utility Wire, far more playable. Now obviously the search in the end phase is pretty bad, all things considered, but I see this exclusively being a card that you would play going first to search out, build your board, and use it as a disruption, because even if they get a search in the end phase, they don't get to do anything with it, 99 times out of 100. So you can break their entire board, they can search their starter all they want, but it's going to be your turn and then you get to OTK. Bounce is a bounce, and if it's a clear field, it's a clear field to attack into. That's my general sense if it sees play. If you're going second, I'd imagine you'd side this shit out immediately. Or if you don't, I might suggest reevaluating your side deck strategy. So yeah, I'm guessing it's maybe a one of, if Vanadium feels like it, I would guess. And lastly this week is Loka Samsara. A normal trap card, this will let you banish a face-up Visage Starfrost you control until the end phase to summon out one heart monster with 3000 attack from your extra deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. But you can only activate its effect once while it's on your field, and it will be banished face down during the end phase. And if your opponent summons from the extra deck while this is in your grave, you get to add it back to your hand. Neat. As always, this is a case of a card being as good as what it summons. Shocking statement, I know. Brave statements only on this channel. Which, it's one of 4 monsters to be clear. Scareclaw Triheart will shift all monsters to defense position while it's on the field. Tearlament Kaleido Heart can target and shuffle a card on the field back into the deck. And Kashtira Arise Heart can, I guess, use its mandatory trigger effect and then do nothing else except for sit on the board and be a fucking macrocosmos the opponent will have to play under, which fucking sucks. So to be clear, its one mandatory trigger is going to be like whatever, but it is going to be a macrocosmos, and that will apply because the macrocosmos effect is not an activated effect. It's a continuous one. Or alternatively, you can summon out Manatium Primeheart, who can use his special defensive ability that stops your opponent from targeting it with card effects. Cope. No monsters facing Manatium Primeheart will be able to be safe due to its multiple energy blades. And you can find this powerful card in Cyberstorm Access, releasing on May 5th. It is, of course, worth reminding that Kaleido Heart will not be able to revive itself using its own effect since it will not have been properly summoned out in the first place. And if anyone's trying to get cheeky and summon out Manatium Primeheart, that is a vanilla synchro plug, depending on, whether or not you're capable of reading, because all its effects require it to be synchro summon, so you can't even use its multiple energy blades. It's just a fucking pylon on your field. All in all, there are some very solid cards in here and some interesting combo potential, and even a potential turn skip that I heavily dislike on principle. Nothing seems game-warpingly strong, but there's some cards good enough that it might be really annoying going up against. Really not looking forward to Arise Heart just showing up in random duels because my opponent was playing Visaz and decided to just fuck me over on my turn. Can't say I'm going to be enjoying that a lot if that becomes popular. And ultimately, it's just going to be a matter of if you draw Imperm or other means to negate or tribute over Veda, or I guess if you're just an absolute Chad and you're playing Monarchs, or if you're a villain and you're playing Flu and you're just not going into your extra deck anyways. That's pretty much the takeaway from Veda, because they just have the audacity to continue to print cards that punish you heavily for using basic game mechanics, like summoning from the extra deck. And so there it is, Visaz's 5th deck of sorts. How many more to go? One more, and then it repeats apparently based on the, actual real worlds. I'm not sure if it's a mythology or a religion. I apologize that this is based on. So I know it has some amount of real life implications. I'm just not entirely sure. I've never bothered to look it up. The point is, collectors may want to have each of these decks and each of these Prime Hearts and each of these Arise Hearts and each of these Hearts and Visaz counterparts, and it rhymes. And this is my long-winded way of segueing to you that you might want to put those cards in a lovely magnetic display from the team at LIFD. Yes, thanks as always to the sponsor, the best way to support the channel currently and the #1 way to display your favorite cards, be they from the Visaz lore or the Albaz lore or the one you think is from the Albaz lore but is actually from the Visaz lore, or maybe you're stuck in 2014 and you still like the dual terminal lore. There's a surprising amount of lore in this game. Either way, if you want to get your bad boy or girl hands, it's falling apart. Either way, if you want to get your hands on one of these awesome ways to display your favorite cards, go ahead and use my promo code YGOStrats15 to have 15% off. Give me a little support, give LAFD a little support, and give your cards a little support, because they got the little stand. They're just independently on display. It's dope as shit, dude. How do you not want it? Either way, thank you to the team at LAFD for the continued support, and thank you for watching. So that'll wrap it up for this week's new card report. As always, I've been your host, Gregory Feganite. No idea why I still say it, but I love saying it anyways. The regular update will be out this Friday as always, and a thank you. An ask to subscribe. A mouse being turned off and thrown away. Now it looks more professional. Amazing how it all works. So yeah, if you want to subscribe, it'll be real cool, and then you'll be impressing that smoking Italian wife. Remember that joke? And then it'll also be, you'll be a to-do-list. It's that fucking easy. You won't get anything in the mail, but you'll get something from this mail. Fucking. All right, that's it. Bye.